Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today will be part 1 of a 5-part blind taste test rankings video series featuring KaffeBox's 2021 Advent Calendar. So a little bit of background information about this series. As a lot of people know, we were initially planning on reviewing each and every one of these coffees individually, but we did not receive our Advent Calendar until December 13th, so we had kind of planned on scrapping this video series altogether, and then we received a comment from our subscriber Nico, so shout out to and thank you to Nico for the suggestion, as he said, why don't you put them all in a blind taste test rankings video? And I thought that was a wonderful idea. So the way that this is going to work is we're going to break them up into increments of 6 days. So day 1 through 6, 7 through 12, and so on. And we're going to pick a winner from every one of those blind taste test rankings videos and put them in a final taste test rankings video to see which one of these coffees is our favorite from the entire Advent Calendar. We did receive a comment from Marius, I want to say that correct as well, and he asked why don't we just start from when we received the Advent Calendar, and that definitely did cross our minds. The issue is it did conflict with too many videos that we had coming towards the end of the year, including our top 10 coffees of the year list, as well as getting back to the viewer subscriber suggestion recommendation series, and we really like to review a lot of the coffees that you guys suggest to us. So without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce the 6 coffees that we have on the table, and I'll give a little bit of background about the coffees and the coffee roaster. And I will apologize in advance for mispronouncing a lot of the names of the coffees, as well as the Scandinavian names of the roasters and cities, because, well, it's that time of year where I have to mispronounce Scandinavian names. All right, first coffee we have, day 1, is the Finca Los Cenizos wash-processed Panama geisha from Jacu out of Alsund, Norway. I believe that's what it says. My handwriting's hard to read. But Jacu, yeah, they were in last year's Advent Calendar, so we had a couple of their coffees, and they weren't necessarily my favorite from the Advent Calendar, but this coffee right here is a favorite to win the entire thing, as it's my favorite type of coffee, washed Panamanian geisha, so this one hopefully should place pretty high. We'll see on that. Day 2, we have the Gelgelu Edemi, natural processed Ethiopia from Langøra Cafe, based out of Stordal, Norway. And they're a coffee roaster that was featured in last year's Advent Calendar as well, 2 coffees, and then we had reviewed one of their coffees just a week ago, actually, maybe a little over a week ago. So a lot of familiarity with that coffee roaster. Natural processed Ethiopia will be interesting. We have the Carazon de Jesus, anaerobic natural processed Costa Rica from Slöinge Coffee Roastery out of Slöinge, Sweden, and it's my first time ever hearing of this coffee roaster. It's an anaerobic natural, not necessarily my favorite type of coffee, but it'll be interesting. They're definitely the wild card in this blind taste test, as I'm not entirely sure what to expect from them, as they're the only roaster so far in the Advent Calendar that I have no familiarity with. Day 4, we have the Kiangoi wash-processed Kenya from Coffee Collective, based out of Copenhagen, Denmark. And I think Coffee Collective is the Scandinavian coffee roaster we've reviewed the most on the channel this year, so should have some familiarity with that. It's a washed Kenyan, so that'll be interesting. Day 5, we have the Finca la Fuente wash-processed Colombia from Koppi coffee roasters out of Helsingborg, Sweden. And they're another coffee roaster that we've actually featured pretty regularly on the channel. They're kind of easy to get our hands on here. So as a result, have some familiarity, and we've actually reviewed that exact coffee earlier this year in April. And then the 6th and final coffee we have is the Chiga wash-processed Kenya from La Cabra out of Aarhus, Denmark. Another coffee roaster that we have quite a bit of familiarity with, another coffee roaster that's featured pretty regularly on this channel. So let's go ahead and move these coffees out of the way, and we will start tasting some coffee. And for anybody that has not seen one of these blind taste test rankings videos before, the way that these work is we have these 6 cups of coffee over here, and we have those 6, containers of coffee, and we're trying to identify which of these cups is which of those containers based off of taste alone. And they're not labeled anywhere except for on the bottom, so we just shuffle them around for good measure. And I always like to talk about the coffees as we're shuffling them around, so this will be an interesting one, as we have 2 washed Kenyans from 2 Danish coffee roasters, so that in itself is going to be tricky. I think a part that might be a little trickier than a lot of people might expect is that there's a Koppi coffee, which tends to be pretty delicate and tame as a whole compared to a Panamanian geisha. So it's going to be interesting. That could potentially be another trip up. The anaerobic and natural might be a trip up, as those 2 have some pretty strong fruit characteristics typically, so I guess we will see. And we'll do one more shuffle, and we will start out with this cup over here. All right. Cup number 1. I'm not sure how many early guesses I want to take. I probably want to do a couple of run-throughs with these. As mentioned, this might be a little trickier blind taste test than normal. This one's pretty nice. It's definitely a wash process coffee, and kind of growing on me the more I'm sipping on it. I have a pretty solid idea of what that one might be, but as of right now, I like that coffee. It's a pretty nice coffee. All right, cup number 2. This one's going to be one of the Kenyans, most likely. That Koppi coffee is going to be a huge wild card and a very interesting coffee in this video, as it, as mentioned, can be very delicate and tame, but I think that one also had some pretty distinct savory red berries. So I like cup number 1 more than I like cup number 2, so we put it right there for right now. Cup number 3. This one's definitely a Kenya too. I mentioned that one might not be the Kenya, but this one definitely is. That one had some very red fruit characteristics. This one right here has some dominant, strong red fruit characteristics. If I had to take a guess, I'm willing to guess that that's probably going to be the Coffee Collective Kenyan. My third favorite so far. A lot of people know how I feel about Kenyans, so that's the way that they're ranked so far. Cup number 4. All right, this one's super clean. I think there are only 2 wash processed non-Kenyans on the table, so that should narrow it down. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think these might both be the Kenyans, and this one might be the Koppi coffee. This one is super delicate, super light, so I'm going to place some right here for right now. These are just preliminary early guesses so far, but I'm very happy with the rankings as of this moment. Cup number 5. That's very interesting. I'm actually getting a little tripped up now. This one's pretty nice though. I'm not entirely sure what I'm missing, as I have not tasted an anaerobic or a natural processed coffee yet. So maybe my tastes are a little off this morning. This one's really nice. I'm putting it at number 2. I'm gonna run through these one more time because obviously something's wrong. So cup number 6. And here we go. This one's definitely the anaerobic, and I can easily tell on that one. Right there, it's got a very strong, winey, sort of boozy, fermenty flavor to it. So a lot of people know that I like Kenyans more than I like that sort of flavor profile. It's been my least favorite flavor profile of the year. Really confident and gonna be happy making that decision on that one. That's the way that they're ranked. I'm pretty happy with the rankings, but I think a couple of these might have tripped me up. I'm not entirely sure what I'm missing because there's the natural process that I didn't necessarily taste off that first run. I'm willing to take a guess on that one, which I believe is the Slöinge coffee, which I believe was number 3. So there we go. And this one right here, I said was one of the Kenyans. And if I had to take a guess as to which of the Kenyans it is, I'm gonna have to guess it's the Coffee Collective. I think the Coffee Collective was probably going to be a little bit more of the savory sort of fruit. I think that they might have had something like rhubarb. I didn't really look at the flavor notes, but I'm gonna go ahead and put that as the Coffee Collective, which was number 4. I'm confident on those 2, not entirely confident on the next 4, but we will potentially even re-rank these. That one could be a number of things, actually. I still think, I'm starting to think that that one might be the Koppi coffee. It's kind of funny that that's the one coffee I've had from this table before, and it's the one that's kind of tripping me up. Maybe as these cool down, I might get a little bit more kind of defining characteristics to them. This one's got some really nice fruits, but it's got some gentle and delicate fruits to it. And then this one right here. I'm starting to think, just based off of the strength of the flavor, that this one right here is probably going to be the natural. Slight bit of strawberry, but it's a pretty, like, lighter strawberry. And then this one right here. No, this one right here. This is the natural. That's kind of funny. Now it's there's a very wild strawberry that's coming from this cup. And it's not as pleasant as it had been, I think, on the first run. Wonder why that tripped me up so much. It's a little bit more elegant and clean for a natural, I think, initially, early on. But this one right here, I think now is my favorite. All right, I'm probably willing to take a couple more guesses here after one more run through. I'm willing to guess on that one that it's the natural. Let's go ahead and that should be number 2. As we know, coffee changes a lot as it cools down, so definitely seeing some huge changes in that one. These 3 are still tripping me up a little bit. I feel like I've gotten the easy ones out of the way, but let's go through these one more time real quick. All I feel like this one's kind of a little too savory for it. I think it has to be the other Kenyan on the table, which is La Cabra, which would be number 6. If this is the way that they actually are, it's kind of funny because a lot of people know that my least favorite coffee tends to be an anaerobic, and then the kind of savory Kenyans tend to be my second least favorite coffee. And now let's see here. We're kind of deciding between the Koppi and the Panamanian geisha. This one has to be the Koppi coffee. I think that there's too much kind of red fruit in it, and it's got that kind of very lightness to it, as a lot of Koppi coffees do. And I think that this one right here is going to be the Panama geisha, the Jacu. If it is, you know, it's kind of unfortunate because it's not standing out as much as I would have hoped or expected it to. I think maybe as it'll cool down, it's very floral. As it's kind of cooling down, I can't help but maybe feel a lot of these white flowers to it. Ooh, getting quite a fair bit of stone fruit. I think that's what I was tripping up on the strawberry. It's a lot more stone fruit, like very, very peachy cup of coffee as it kind of cools down. That has to be the Panama geisha. All right, let's go ahead and see how we did. So this one right here, I said was the Slöinge coffee. I'm like 100% sure on that one. It should say number 3. And of course, that's number 3. Very easy one to pick out. Very fermenty, boozy, wine-forward sort of coffee. As mentioned, not necessarily my favorite. Very strong fruits to it. Just a little too intense for me. All right, so this one right here I said was the Coffee Collective Kenyan. I expected that one to be the more savory of the two Kenyans. So this one should say number 4. And this one does say number 4. Again, these were the two really, really easy ones. The natural ended up being easier as I sipped on it as it cooled down a little bit more. But yeah, very savory cup of coffee, very Kenyan-like cup of coffee. This one I said was the La Cabra, so this one should say number 6, as again, it had a little bit of savoriness to it, but it was a little bit more kind of even and balanced than I think the other one was. So this one should say 6. Ooh, this one actually says 5. Okay, well, there you go. I finally got one wrong. For all the people that have been hoping I would get one wrong eventually, then I got one wrong, and it's funny because that's the one I have familiarity with. That's the Koppi coffee, and I've said that it's got a very kind of red fruit sort of flavor characteristic to it, but it's a lot more light. So that's what's funny. I even said that the Koppi coffee might trip me up. So that right there is actually the Koppi coffee, and that one finished 4th. So this one right here, I think then should be the La Cabra coffee, which would make this one number 6. And it is. All right, so I got these two flipped around. So that's kind of funny. I think I'll try this one more time now. I said that they were both kind of red fruit forward, and I guess that was going to kind of trip me up. I still think this one actually does taste like the what I remembered the Koppi coffee tasting like. So interesting right there. That's the way they ranked. That's the way they finished. 2 different ones. All right, this one right here I'm 100% confident on. I said it was the Langøra coffee, so it should be number 2, and it is. All right, and of course, that means that number 1 is the Jacu, the Panamanian geisha. Not surprising that it finished first. As mentioned, as it cools down, definitely the most floral cup of coffee on this table, getting a lot more stone fruits as it has cooled down. But I think my overall impressions of this is that I was expecting this one to actually blow the rest of the competition away, and it wasn't that much better than the Langøra Cafe in my impression. So this one was the first place finisher. It'll advance to the final video. Langøra Cafe was pretty nice. Funny, I got these two mixed up, but I did mention earlier it's entirely possible that I was going to mix those two up. It happens. Let me go ahead and place them in the correct spot now. So this is the way they finished. Of course, we have 3 more of these videos to go to kind of put them all in that final video. But yeah, pretty interesting first run. A lot of these coffees weren't necessarily my flavor profile, so maybe one of the upcoming ones will be a little bit more competitive and we might see something that can compete, or might see something that completely blows me away. But if you have by chance got the advent calendar, would love to know which of these 6 coffees was your favorite, which one was your least favorite. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like. As mentioned, these are by far the most difficult videos to do, but they are by far the most fun. If you're new to the channel, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. But this right here has been part 1 of the Advent Calendar Blind Taste Test Rankings video series. Thank you for watching.